I was an alcoholic, drug addict, sex addict, complete mess of a human being. Got sober when I was 27 years old.
What the process you go through to figure out what's really a 10 and what might be like a more for not a 10, I guess is the way, it's sort of a binary thing.
It was time to go to the pool. It was a Saturday, and my wife said, "Let's go to the pool. We're going to go to the pool." And I was like, I don't know if I want to go to the pool. I don't even know if I want to. I don't know. So I went and sat on the front porch while everybody's running around the house getting ready to go to the pool. My wife opens the door. "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm trying to decide if I want to go to the pool or not." That goes into things that are other than the ADHD. That goes into my self-worth and self-esteem. Can I say no to someone?
How do you look at 3 really good ideas and say, okay, I'm doing this one first?
The thing that I have to worry about is not juggling between 3 things that I want to do. It's more, is it a distraction? Is it a new shiny object taking me away from the thing I said I wanted to do?
Today, I'm honored to have my guest, Mark J. Silverman, an incredible executive coach, speaker, podcaster, and author with over 12 years of experience helping leaders break old patterns and excel under pressure. He's the author of Only Tens and Only Tens 2.0 and the Rising Leader Handbook. He's also the host of the Rising Leader Podcast, dedicated to turning high achievers into truly impactful leaders. Now, on to the episode. Hey, it's Steve. Real quick before we begin, the single biggest thing I've learned about succeeding as an ADHD entrepreneur is that everything boils down to mastering your weeks. So if ADHD is making business harder than it needs to be, I've got something that can help. Grab my free weekly ADHD dashboard. It's a free, simple, but powerful tool to help you stay focused, organized, and in control of your week. The link is in the description below. Welcome back to the ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator Podcast. Today, my guest is Mark Silverman, and I want to give you the intro on him, and then we're going to talk even more into the backstory of how Mark and I came to know each other. But so you know who Mark is. Mark J. Silverman heeded the call into the sphere of coaching and speaking from a successful career in technology. During his corporate tenure, Mark generated over $90 million in sales for fast-growing startups by bringing together executives, tech leaders, and stakeholders to close complex multi-million-dollar deals. Mark has enjoyed a consistently full roster of executive coaching clients for a decade. He is committed to helping CEOs, senior leaders, and rising high achievers leverage their resources and teams for greater impact while creating sustainable success in all areas of their lives. Mark is the author of the Rising Leader Handbook, turning high achievers into effective leaders, and Only Tens 2.0, Confront Your To-Do List, Transform Your Life, which in its 2 iterations has sold over 75,000 copies. Amazing. Mark is also the host of the Rising Leader Podcast. Mark helps CEOs, senior leadership, and fast-rising high achievers leverage their resources and team for greater impact. Welcome to the podcast, Mark. It is so great to have you here. Where in the world do we find you today?
I'm outside of Washington, D.C. in a little town called Leesburg, Virginia.
And I got to say, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And we were just talking about this, but I want to give people a little bit of the backstory of how we came to know each other. I originally met Mark back in 2017, and I had just left the company that had acquired my startup after becoming the CMO, and it was a $100 million company, and I was reporting to a private equity board, and I was just like, okay, I'm burned out. It's time to do something different. And as I came out of that phase of my life, I started to explore the coaching area of becoming a coach because other founders were coming to me. And through that, I encountered Mark, and we had, I guess, one conversation where Mark was helping another coach who's very well known, Rich Litvin, with a event in London, an intensive. And he said, well, you can come if you want, if you can get there. And I was like, I can get there. And off we went. And Mark was just one of those people you meet at the right place and the right time. And I have a feeling you're that for a lot of people that you meet. And kind of was a springboard for me to get into coaching as a profession. So that's why it's so great to be connecting with you. And there's so much to talk about here. But I wanted to give that backstory so the folks listening would understand it and know it.
I appreciate it. You're one of my favorite people that I hardly ever get to talk to. So I'm so glad that we get to reconnect on the podcast. I remember you were working on, you invented something way back when that was really cool that had something to do with stocks and the markets. I was just so fascinated.
Yeah, that was a little company called August and Wonder that created a finance meet Internet of Things object. And it was a bull and a bear sculpture on a seesaw. And it was beautiful, made out of like brass and wood, but it was internet connected, so it would connect to the stock market, and it would actually move in real time to whatever the stock market did. So it was an enchanted object, as they say. And it was a great little run that got a little bit submarined by the pandemic, and then also some challenges in our family's life, with some health issues with our kiddo. But it was 2017, 2018 was such an amazing time, and it feels like 6 lifetimes ago. There's so much to cover, there's so much I really want to talk to you about. But let's give everybody listening, tell me about your journey, and specifically around the ADHD components. So it was something that you were also diagnosed later in life, as I understood it. And so tell me about, give us the backstory of Mark Silverman.
The backstory was I was an alcoholic, drug addict, sex addict, complete mess of a human being, and got sober when I was 27 years old back in 1989. And after getting sober and going to college, and getting my college degree in my 40s, it took me that, because again, I had no idea I had any neurodiversity or anything like that. I just thought I was a mess up, right? After getting married and having kids, trying to figure out how to function like a regular person. So I was in high-tech sales where things were just running and gunning really fast. And there were certain parts of the job that were super hard for me. Like I didn't get my expenses in, but until the company would say, Mark, we're not going to pay your expenses until you get them in. Until I had figured out that I would pay someone, I would pay one of the admins there to take all my receipts and do I gave her 10% of all my expenses to do my expenses. And even if that 10% was less than the receipts I would have lost had I not given them to her. Again, still didn't know anything about ADD, ADHD, none of this stuff. One of my children was having trouble in school. We wanted to diagnose him and see what was going on with him. So to have him not be stigmatized, the whole family took the test. And the doctor, when she had me, my 2 sons, and my now ex-wife in the room, said, "Do you know who's off the charts? Don't even know how they function?" And I start pointing to my ex-wife. And the doctor says, "Mr. Silverman, how do you function? You are off the charts." And I also found out later that I have no executive function. I had a psychiatrist put electrodes on my head, and he said, "See that dark spot right there? That's your executive function. It doesn't light up." And I said, "What's executive function?" And he said, "You know that cause and effect thing where you're about to do something, there's consequences, so you think about it and don't do that?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't have that." And I was like, oh my God, that explains everything in my life, my entire life, why I could drink like a fish, why cocaine was just amazing for me, right? That just explained my entire life. I went to another psychiatrist to, officially diagnose as an adult and get meds. And I said, "How do I know if after an hour with him, I said, "How do I know if I'm really ADD?" He goes, "Well, you take a pill and, if you can focus, then you know."
Yeah.
He goes, "By the way, I've been doing this for 35 years. And if you're not, I will eat my hat because you can't pay attention." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I took, back then it was an Adderall. It was like night and day. I just could not believe what that did for me. So I started taking Adderall, and I didn't like it. I took Adderall. It was like a Disney movie for about 3 hours, 4 hours. And then the crash was horrible, and I hated life. I remember my boss came into my office and he goes, "What's these?" And he takes 2. And I said, those are my ADD meds. He goes, oh, okay. And he comes back into my office an hour later. He goes, I haven't thought of killing my wife in an hour. What are those things? And I said, well, I figure you're probably the same as me, given, high-tech sales guys. We're all that way. But anyway, so that was the start of that. When I became a coach, I was having trouble getting things done. One of the things I noticed was I had moved to time-release Ritalin because that was less of a crash. And what I noticed is I couldn't coach as well on the meds. There was no access to something that I had when I didn't take the meds. And the problem was, again, Only Tens, the book that I wrote was about me trying to figure out, because when I had an asshole sales manager, I did pretty well. I'm a people pleaser. I was scared of being at the bottom of the leaderboard. I was scared of not closing sales. I was scared of being called out. So that was my impetus to work. I didn't have the dopamine, and I didn't have these words back then, but I didn't have the drive in myself to do that. I was scared of things. So when I became an entrepreneur, I would sit in my office and what do I do? I don't know. What do I do? Why don't I get anything done? I have plenty of time to get things done. And it was so hard to run a business. It was so hard to find a way to be my own sales manager and an executive function myself. And that's when I talked to our mutual friend, Rich Litvin, about, he was my coach at the time. And that's when he said to me, I said, Rich, I just can't seem to get anything done. I don't know why I don't get anything done. And he said the magic words to me. He says, Mark, in your bio, you said you made $1 million. When you thought you were going to die, you wanted to make $1 million. Did you make the $1 million? I said, yes, I made the $1 million. He said you wanted to run the Marine Corps Marathon, even though you couldn't run a mile. I said, yeah, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon. He says, so I don't think it's that you can't get things done. I think it's you don't get things done that you don't want to do. And you do get things done that you do want to do. And I went, whenever the new iPhone came out, I had one within a day, right? I always found the time to go get an iPhone. And I started to realize that I have gotten everything I've ever wanted. I've accomplished almost everything I've ever really, really, really wanted. And Rich said to me, what if you only did what you wanted to do? What if you just trusted that intuition and only did what you want to do? I said, I know I'd be living under a bridge and my kids would be starving to death. I don't trust that. He said, why don't you try that? And that's when I said, okay, I will give that a shot. And that's when the whole idea behind Only Tens came in, and the whole thing of me exploring how I lie to myself every single day about what I want to do, what I'm capable of doing, what I have time to do, all of that stuff. I lie to other people because I want to be all things to all people all the time. And that's when I started to realize that the things I got done had a certain thing behind it, and the things I didn't get done didn't have that. So it was a binary thing. It wasn't like you look at your list. Normal people can look at a list and say, okay, these are A, B, C, big rocks, little rocks. And you and I look at a list and it just all screams at you. And it's like,
everything
I
now.
don't know. I don't know where to go. So I think I'm going to go scroll because I can't. And I started to realize that 90% of the things that were on my to-do list were on there for stupid reasons. They were on there for my self-esteem, to be liked, because I was afraid to say no, because I think I should do them. And they were all the 6, 7, 8s, and 9s on a scale of 1 to 10 on my list, when everything was either a 10 or a 0. The truth is I only do 10s and I don't do anything else. And that's how the book Only Tens came out, is if I could slow down enough to know what I really had a commitment to, what I really had juice around, those things got done.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And there's so much to unpack there. There's so much that you have just verbalized that I think a lot of people that I've encountered have gone through as well. Like I'm talking to a lot of people right now who have gone from a very structured or very stimulating environment and now are working for themselves, becoming entrepreneurs. And they're the same way. It's like, I have the experience, I have the skills, I know I can do this. My brain I get to the computer or to do what I want to do. My brain says, nope, I'm not doing that. And there's also this thing about, so ADHD brains are a little tricky, right? Because there's two things that drive ADHD brains into action: intense interest and intense consequences, right? Those are two. In between, not much that does it, right? So, and intense consequences are things like disappointing people, like rejection sensitivity is kind of like, at the heart of that. So one of the things that's tricky about it, though, is that ADHD brains are super interested in lots of different things and can get really excited about certain things, even though it might not be like, and one of my coaches, Paul Ungerbers, called it the intellectual yes versus the full body yes. And so this is like, I read the Only Tens before I was diagnosed ADHD, and I thought, oh, this is really great. And then I read it again afterwards, and I hadn't really realized that was part of the story in my memory. And then it hit me at a whole different level.
The book works on two levels. It works on a regular brain prioritization level, and then people like us going, oh, and I love the way he said that, the intellectual yes and the full body. A 10 is a full body yes. You can trust that.
That's what I'd love to ask you go a little bit deeper on, because it's a question I get is like, how do I really know what's a 10 for me? Because my brain, like, I have to say, everything is interesting, but not everything that's important is interesting, right? Everything that's interesting is interesting, but everything that interesting isn't important. I guess that's another way to say it. How do you, like, with the brain that's constantly grabbing onto things and has like intense idea crushes on new things. And I like to say that sometimes we borrow other people's why, because we're like, that's a really great mission, I should work on that too. What the process you go through to figure out what's really a 10 and what might be like a, more for not a 10, I guess is the way. This is sort of a binary thing.
I get to tell these stories with this conversation that I haven't gotten to tell in years. So this is so fun. So I really didn't know what my own ideas were until I was, in my 40s. I remember, this is the moment I remember having my own thought. When my wife and I had little kids, it was time to go to the pool. It was a Saturday, and my wife said, let's go to the pool. We're going to go to the pool. And everybody starts running around to get shit together for the pool. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go to the pool. I don't even know if I want to. I don't know. And it just kind of dawned on me that I didn't know. So I went and sat on the front porch while everybody's running around the house getting ready to go to the pool. And I'm like, do I want to go to the pool? So my wife opens the door. She goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to decide if I want to go to the pool or not. And for her, that's like, for me, that was just a paralyzing moment. And she goes, well, when you figure it out, let me know. And I sat there and I was like, I don't want to go to the pool. Oh my God. And I realized I didn't even know how to say, I don't want to go to the pool, because we're going to the pool. My wife wants to go to the pool. The kids want to go to the pool. We're going to the pool. So I said to her, I said, I don't think I want to go to the pool. And she goes, fine. She goes, just help me get the kids in the car. And they went to the pool, and I sat home and drew, because I was just starting to do artwork then. And I had the best time. And that was the first time I went, oh my God, I don't know how to think for myself when I'm around other people. I get caught up in what other people want to do, and I make them the priority. And I don't pay attention to my own stuff, which is why a lot of my own stuff doesn't get done, because the priority is other people's emergencies. That was the beginning of that. So fast forward to the Only Tens piece. For me, it was, can I trust myself to get it done? Or can I not trust myself to get it done? And almost always it was, I couldn't trust myself to have the dopamine, to have the energy to follow through and get something done. So when I started I started a week of Only Tens. It was there was only maximum 3 things a day that I was going to do. Like I was not going to have a list of things to do. I was going to have 1, 2, or 3 things that either had to get done, I really wanted to get done, or there was a consequence if I didn't get done, right? So we talked about that just before. Like I just used those parameters because I didn't have an internal clock for that. So this was practice for me. So I sat there and I put it on and the reason like Only Tens has all kind of whiteboard art in there, because I did everything on my whiteboard because I could not put anything in a book. I couldn't put it on a computer. I had to see it up there on the whiteboard in order to be able to do anything about it. And every day I would just do that 1, 2, or 3 things. That was it. Then I would just get that done. And then I could around the rest of the day. Like it didn't matter. And the first day I would do that. And the second day I just like, if I said I was going to do it, I'm going to do it. And that's the only thing I'm going to do. And the third day I did that. And then I did a few more things. And then the fourth day I did only my 10s. And then I did a few more things. And what I noticed was if I just focused on those couple of things that were important and I just did those things, that I got more done of the lesser important things or the later things. Then I started to notice when I lied to myself. The first time I learned I lied to myself is working out. I put working out on my list. If I worked out in the morning, I worked out. If I missed the morning but left it on the list and said I'll work out in the afternoon, I didn't work out. I went, oh. So I can put it on the list. So I put it on the 10s list for that day to work out. If I didn't work out in the morning, I took it off the list. And then I realized if I didn't look, if it wasn't in there cluttering it, I could do the other two things. And then I didn't beat myself up because I was learning how I lied to myself. And now I know, now I started to learn, when am I lying to myself? When am I telling the truth? When am I committed to something and when am I not? And then I learned also that just because I ask for help to get something done, like bookend, like tell someone I want to do something, I do it, and then I call them and say I did it, right? That means it's a 10. I now do Zoom sessions with a friend of mine. Like I have things to do, like I have a list of things I want to just knock out. We get on Zoom, we say what we're going to do. And it's so funny the way this brain works is if I have someone on Zoom, I knock things out like that, like there's no problem.
It's magic.
And that tells me that
magic.
they're 10s because I got the support to go get it done. If I pay, I also learned that if I really want to get something done and I know I don't have the dopamine for it, pay for it to get done. So I pay more for support than my little one-person business should.
That's a really good call.
And, I have a full-time assistant. I pay full-time for her. She's amazing. She maybe works 10 hours a week, the max.
Nice.
I don't care because those things that she gets done, I would never get done. And she says like, give me more. I'm like, sweetheart, you don't understand. Those 10 hours that you work are so important to me. It's amazing. I have a bookkeeper. I couldn't get my quarterly taxes in. I couldn't get my business finances. So now I have a bookkeeper and an accountant. And I'm supposed to go over a lot of this stuff to be a responsible business owner. I don't go over it half as much as like a quarter of as much as I should. But I'll tell you what, I pay my quarterly taxes every quarter. Like I am up to date on everything because I have all these people taking care of those things. So for me, paying for people to do things that I know are really important that I know I'm never going to get to because I lie to myself is super important.
It's so huge. And you had the nickname in the book, Ernest is the name.
Ernest is all things to all people all the time.
Yes. And it's such a great name and analogy. And it makes so much sense. What strikes me is like before you knew that this is how your brain worked, like it's just like stuff happening to you and it's a character defect. But once you understand how your brains work, it's okay. So you got less executive function to deal with. Let's just deal with that and say, okay, you're going to need help in certain places. And it just makes sense. And it just sounds like you're going to work your business. And this is one of the reasons it's great to have your own business, especially as solopreneurs. You get to work it the way you want. Right. And the way that works for your brain. And that's such a huge, huge part of what we talk about with the ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator. And just how I approach it is like, we got to start with working with your brain. The business depends on how well you work with and manage your ADHD brain. And it sounds like, just the systems and the way you've come at it has just been so helpful in helping me navigate my own business as well. So what would you say are like the biggest pitfalls? Because one of the things you mentioned was, being fear driven in the book and fear occupying such a big place in ADHD brains. How do you advise people on that? Because like, just even when you said, I'm just going to do only 10s, I got fearful because it was like this whole weight of all, but there's other things besides the 10s that have to get done. So how do you navigate that stuff?
That goes into things that are other than the ADHD. That goes into my self-worth and self-esteem. Can I say no to someone? Right? Can I say no and still be okay? And that was terrifying to me, being a people pleaser, right? Can I disappoint people? Can I disappoint myself? Like when I have, like, I remember I had like 5 things all in a row on the same week that I could go do. And they were all amazing. One was being on TV and doing this, and one was and I was like, oh my God, like I could only pick one. It's being able to disappoint that little kid inside of me, because, I walk around like a 63-year-old man, but there's a little boy in here that's just like, I just want what I want, and I want to have fun and all that stuff. That was a big piece. Can I set boundaries? Can I ask for help? Can I ask for what I want? Like, that was terrifying to me. Those all have nothing to do with a neurodiverse brain. They'll have everything to do with childhood traumas and all kinds of other stuff. So when I started to, and that's why I call it confront your to-do list, transform your life, because I can look at someone's to-do list and it's like tarot cards to me. I understand where they came from, how they grew up, all that stuff. So for me, once I started looking at what was really important and important to me, that told me all about my relationships with everybody else in the world. And that was super hard for me to go from someone who was pretzel, twist himself into a pretzel for everybody, to now everybody would say, Mark Silverman, you know exactly where he stands. He tells you the truth. He sets boundaries. A lot of people think I'm an asshole. In fact, a lot of people come up to me and say, I thought you were an asshole. And then years later, I was like, I realized that you were just telling the truth. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I don't want to be an asshole.
In a society where you're rewarded for not speaking the truth a lot of times, or by going along and getting along, sometimes just saying what is and what's real to you puts people on their back foot. I want to go back to something there that I think is really important, and something that I've been encountering a lot lately with some of the entrepreneurs I've been working with, is you have these 5 amazing things that you've come up with, or you've encountered, or you've developed. And that, you said, part of it is not disappointing other people, but I think it is sometimes that disappointing yourself, or that kidding you, or being able to let things go, and maybe not even in a permanent way, because ADHD brains are very binary. It's like either I'm doing it or I'm not doing it. It's like, we've got to remind ourselves that you can put things in sequence, in order. What techniques do you have when you've got 6 ideas and you're in love with all of them, and yet, look, you're doing injustice to all of them by not focusing on the ones that maybe will push you forward the most, or have the most impact for what you said you want. So I'm curious what your techniques are for, how do you look at 3 really good ideas and say, okay, I'm doing this one first?
That's a hard one right now, because I'm so good at that. Like, I know myself so well now. The thing that I have to worry about is not juggling between 3 things that I want to do. It's more, is it a distraction? Is it a new shiny object taking me away from the thing I said I wanted to do? That's more present to me than, because I know myself so well now from this process that I can choose things. Although for my birthday was yesterday, and
happy birthday.
And I was having a little meltdown about all the options that I had and how to put them in sequence, because my sons wanted to hang out with me, but my sons are kosher. So the only way, and how do I get to a kosher restaurant? And I don't want to go to the kosher restaurant. And again, I know myself really well. There was an art class I wanted to take, and my husband wanted to take me out to dinner. And I was like, oh, and there was a networking meeting that I wanted to go to. So there was 4 things I wanted to do, and I know myself. So I just put them all on the whiteboard. I put all 4 things on the whiteboard, and I wrote up on top, what do I want to do for my birthday? And then I trusted that I would know exactly what to do. And the next day I looked at my whiteboard, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was going to skip the networking meeting. I was going to have dinner with my husband the day before my birthday. I was going to go to the art class on my birthday, and I'm having dinner tonight with my sons, but we're not going to the kosher restaurant. We're just going to go to my son's apartment where everything's kosher and everything's easy, and I'm just going to spend time with my son. And simple. But I put it on the whiteboard when I saw myself spin out and just trusted that I would sort it out later. So I think that way actually answered your question.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I heard from your process was there's a pause. There's a moment of awareness. I've got more options and my brain has not been able to like figure out what order to put them in. And I'm feeling strong pull of obligation for all of them. They're all things that involve people that you care about in your life. And they're all trying to do nice things for you on your birthday. But there was that pause that put it in a place where you can see it. So I think that's always helpful. And then you were able to sort of like take a moment, whatever it was, sleep on it, and then put it in an order and find a way.
In order to do the thing I wanted to do tonight with my sons, I had to cancel this interview. And this interview was a 10 for me. So I said, I'm not going to reschedule Steve. I'm going to do this and do a simplified birthday dinner.
Wow. I'm just very touched that this is a 10.
Yeah, but I thought about it because I was like, I'm perfectly within my rights to reschedule this. And I thought about it, and this is a 10. I did not want to move this conversation. I was looking forward to connecting with you. So I honored that and just simplified the dinner.
Yeah. And it all worked out really well. As I said, I'm honored. I'm very touched on that to make it onto a 10. I really recommend people to pick up Only 10s. You know, it's on Amazon.
It's free on my website.
Is it free
Go
now?
to my website, markjsilverman.com. Only 10s, you can get a free hard copy. We'll mail you a copy, signed copy of the book, or you can get an electronic copy, or both if you want, on the website. So don't even go buy it.
Okay, amazing. I didn't even realize you were offering for free. People, go get that. Like, push pause, go to your web browser, and markjsilverman.com.
letterjsilverman.com. They get that for free.
It is a profoundly amazing book that it will really help you. And I know it helped me. And I think one of the other things in there that we have sort of overlapping terminology on is you have a true north. I have a magnetic north. But that idea that there's some place or some direction that you're going that has to anchor all of this stuff, all this prioritization, right? And so how do you define true north? You know, how would you help people define the true north? Like, just conceptually.
My son is a Hasidic rabbi. And when he went off to yeshiva, he said, Dad, I said, why are you going to yeshiva? He said, oh, because of your True North chapter in your book. And I went, what are you talking about? He goes, you know, the chapter in your book? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said, I read that chapter and my true north was I wanted to learn who I am. He says, and then I realized the steps I wanted to do that was I wanted to learn who I am through my Judaism. And I learned that I wanted to go to yeshiva in Israel to learn who I am. That is really kind of crazy. And he says that he's a rabbi because he wants to be like me. He doesn't want to be a coach, but and that just kind of makes me cry. So that true north is, who do I ultimately want to be? What is ultimately the most important thing? Do I want $10 million? Do I want to be happy and free? Do I want what is it that drives me? For me, what drives me now is I want peace. I want peace and freedom. And I want to be unconditional love in the world. That drives me. So the steps I do every day, my 10s are informed by that. You will not get me to not sit on my cushion and meditate and journal and read the books that I read and do the things that I do. That is a priority to me. I also want to be financially solvent, right? So that I can do all these things and help my children and do all that. So the way I run my business now is to make sure that that's a thing. So those are my true norths.
Yeah, no, that's amazing because I have clients. I just want to feel that feeling of peace. And one of the big wins in our co-working group is when we get to the end of the week and people say, I got it done. I can go have a weekend without it hanging over me. And it's like, I know people want the financial wins and the business wins and all that. And it's great when they happen and they do happen. But I feel like the biggest one is just being able to start the weekend and be like, I got a whole weekend and I don't have all this stuff hanging over me. Or even at the end of a day, it's just like, I'm good. It's that freedom. It's that peace that is really ultimate goal and the ultimate, I think what you're helping people create with the work you do. Oh man, it's been so great talking with you. So where can people find you again? We talked about markjsilverman.com.
Yeah, I'm all over, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, but yeah, markjsilverman.com is where you can find everything. The free book. There's a free only tens course there because most of my clients won't read a book. So there's like 4 or 5 videos in this little course that I did so that you don't have to read the book.
People, go get this. It's such a huge value. It'll be so impactful. And you've got the Rising Leader podcast.
And the Rising Leader Handbook has been out for a year. That's been selling. That's been on the charts now for a year and a half now. That's crushing it. So I'm really happy about that.
I'm just so excited having seen your progression over the last 8 years. Oh my goodness, since 2017. And just seeing what you've built and what you've created and how many people you've impacted. And I'm so glad I've encountered you in my life, and I'm hoping other people will get a little taste of it from our conversation. But it's just been amazing talking with you, and I'm so glad we got to reconnect in this format.
Thank you, Steve. It's so good to see you.
All right, well, that's it for today. Definitely check out markjsilverman.com and the Rising Leader podcast, and we'll put links to both those things in our show notes, so you have it, and we'll see you next time on ADHD Entrepreneur Accelerator. Talk to you soon.